My name is James Bridgeforth. I'm a young and very successful investor. And in this video, I'm going to talk about how Bitcoin has already made its big move. And early investors are now seeing life-changing gains, but there's many people who are still sitting on the sidelines. If you've been waiting for the perfect time to buy, this video may be a wake-up call that you didn't know you needed. Before we touch on anything in this video, I want to touch on Bitcoin's current price. Bitcoin at the time of making this video is currently sitting at $121,000. It's up 10% over the last week and it's up 1,200% over the last 5 years. Many investors who were sitting on the sidelines will hear all of the great returns that those early investors were able to benefit from. But I'm here to tell you that it's not too late. There's a reason and a way that you're able to gain those same returns while not sitting on the sidelines. And I'm going to break down why Bitcoin will continue to perform over the long term, how you can position yourselves so you can receive those great returns so you don't miss out on the next run up. The main reason Bitcoin will continue to perform well over the long run is strictly because of many other asset classes, which is why when you have gold, which is a great store of value before Bitcoin came along, and it was able to be inflated at 2%. Yeah, that's not bad compared to the dollar, where it's inflating at around 8 to 9% a year, and you have gold that's inflating around 2% a year, and it's a better store of value because it's not as easily created. But Bitcoin is the only asset class where you really can't create more of it. And you have such amounts of money coming in through the US dollar, which constantly being printed. And you have so much money formulating and going into this one asset class, which has a finite supply cap, to the point to where not every millionaire can even own one Bitcoin. There's not enough in the system. So if you have this much money going into a finite supply cap of 21 million, the price of Bitcoin will continue to skyrocket as we're in a debt-based economy. We're in a debt spiral at the moment. The only way that the US is going to be able to finance or even pay the interest on their debt is to continue to print more and more money. There's at a point to where the US actually brings in $4 trillion a year, and that's pretty much through taxes. They spend $1 trillion on military, and they spend $1 trillion just to pay the interest on the debt. It's gonna get to a point to where we're not able to afford this. There's actually more debt than we have money in circulation, so they have to create money. They have to continue on this path, and when they do so, there's going to be an inflation. There's going to be asset inflation. And which asset is going to perform the best? The one with the most finite supply cap, the one that can't be created more of. Which is why I'm pushing this so heavy, is because I want you to understand the opportunity that you have. There's a lot of people that are looking back and thinking to themselves, man, Bitcoin is at all-time highs. There was a point to where I was buying Bitcoin where it was at $20,000 a coin. And I was thinking back then, man, Bitcoin is really high. It's at all-time highs. But you have to understand, stop thinking about where Bitcoin came from and start to shift your mind to think about where Bitcoin is going. Because if you're solely focused on where it came from, then you will never be able to grasp the opportunity that you have right now to partake in the gains that you could receive in the future. And the reason that I speak on supply and demand so much is simple. It basically controls the amount that we pay for goods and services and how we value our assets on a much simple term. So let's say that we were in a desert and we were starving, we were dehydrated, we needed water to save our lives. We would pay anything to have that bottle of water. But let's say we're in a desert and there's an abundance of water. Then the value of what we would pay to receive that water is much lower than if we were deprived of thirst. So I'm trying to tell you that if you look at the supply of things, the more supply of something that you have, the less valuable it becomes. Another thing is why this could perform well in the future also has to do simply with the market cap. Bitcoin is now sitting at a $2 trillion market cap. And when you look at all the other assets in the world that total up to 900 trillion, and you have gold, which is sitting at a market cap of around 18 to 19 trillion dollars. If Bitcoin can even just catch up to gold in the slightest, that will put Bitcoin at an exorbitant amount. But if you even catch up to all the other asset classes, or it takes up 100 trillion out of the 900 trillion in assets, then you could see that Bitcoin is a long ways away and it has a lot of room for growth. And when you hear about people that are speculating Bitcoin, or you hear about a lot of people that are talking bad on Bitcoin, then you can understand that there's a lot of room for growth because not everybody is bought in. And the reason Bitcoin is different than anything we've ever seen before is because retail investors like you and me are actually able to get into Bitcoin before institutional buyers. we were able to adopt Bitcoin to where we were able to buy it, use it as a store of value, and grow our wealth like nobody could have ever imagined before. But institutions weren't buying Bitcoin during this time. But now the United States government and many of the companies in the Magnificent Seven in the stock market are now starting to accumulate Bitcoin as a reserve currency asset. And it's going to come to a point where the greatest stocks and the greatest companies in the world will have to own Bitcoin because our value is slowly becoming devalued. And there's going to come to a point where you have to own the best asset class and the most finite asset if you want to set yourself apart and continue to gain wealth and generate revenue for your company and your shareholders. Now that we spoke on why I think that Bitcoin will continue to perform over the long run, I want to speak on how I was able to accumulate my Bitcoin. So during probably around 2023, I was buying Bitcoin at around $20,000 per coin. Now I was buying Bitcoin at around 50,000, then 75,000 when it was somewhere around those prices. And I also have a dollar cost average set to where I buy $20 of worth of Bitcoin every single day. So when I buy that Bitcoin every single day, probably I've been doing it for over the past year. Then I also have a nice pile of cash that I sit to the side to where when Bitcoin takes a dip of around 10% during times of trial, maybe when there was a tariff war and we had a slight dip or a decrease in the price of Bitcoin, I'm buying heavy during those times so that it lowers my average cost and that I can receive great returns on my investment when we have enormous gains like we're having right now to where Bitcoin is sitting at $121,000 per coin. So that's one way that I suggest that you could implement a way or a system to where you're able to buy and accumulate more Bitcoin so that when Bitcoin continues to run up in the upward trajectory, you're not sitting on the sidelines and you're actually implementing your money and not sitting there wondering, how am I also able to accumulate those type of gains? So you have to think ahead. So at this exact moment, you're sitting here and you're thinking, man, I wish I bought Bitcoin during this time, or I wish I bought Bitcoin back then. You're sitting at this moment understanding the amazing asset class that Bitcoin is. Remember this exact moment. Remember the feeling that you felt of when you had this fear of missing out. So if Bitcoin decides to drop 10 or 15% because there's other world events going on, remember there's nothing wrong with Bitcoin itself. It's just simply a supply and demand effect to where Bitcoin is taking a dip. That same hype that you had at this exact moment is the same hype you should have when it takes a dip. So what are you going to do to take advantage of your future, and what are you going to do to accumulate more Bitcoin? Now that you understand what you could do and what I did to accumulate more Bitcoin, I want to talk about how and what price predictions many analysts have set for Bitcoin in the near term. So many analysts predict that Bitcoin could go to 200,000 or 250,000 by the end of the year. And for a long-term perspective, Kathy Woods, a great financial analyst, has stated that she thinks in 2030, Bitcoin could be over $1 million in a bullish case and $700,000 in a bearish case. So basically what she's saying is that over time, she thinks that Bitcoin will continue to perform well, which is another reason of if we're at $1 million, we're probably at a 10x on your money from right here. So let's say if you're investing $20 a day, that $20 that you're putting away today is not $20, it's $200 a day. Or let's say you're putting away $100 a day. That $100 that you're investing a day in a dollar cost average, if we hit $1 million in 2030, like Kathy Wood said, that's not a $100 investment. That's you saving $1,000 a day. That's how you have to look at it. If you have these high hopes or you have these grand ideas for what Bitcoin could possibly become, you have to look at it from that perspective, that these small investments are accounting and gradually growing to things that you could have never saw before. The reason I wanted to briefly touch on this topic and speak and make this video is because there's many investors that are sitting on the sidelines and they just sit back and watch people on social media tell them about the prices that Bitcoin is going to or where it's currently at. And they're sitting back thinking to themselves, man, I'm late. I sat back, I watched Bitcoin run up. There's no way that I'm ever going to be able to create wealth for myself or grow my money. But I'm here to tell you that you're not late. Stop looking at where Bitcoin came from and start to look at where Bitcoin is going. Find ways to accumulate more Bitcoin. Find ways to do the research and knowledge to understand Bitcoin. If you have any questions about this video, leave them in the comment section. I'll answer any questions. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Continue to do the knowledge and the research. I appreciate everybody for watching this video and sticking around to the end. If you have any questions, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, turn on those post notification bells so you never miss an update, and I'll see you guys in the next video.